Hey everyone, Sycra Yasin here, and today I'm doing something a bit different, and I have a guest on, Ben Middleton, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And he actually emailed me and suggested that. Well, do you want to explain your?
Yeah. Um, it was really a lot of the videos and the tutorials and the live streams that you see. It's always a professional talking to another professional. I feel like you can gain a lot from it. But I've often heard them say that they can't really. A lot of them are so far past the grinding phase of trying to learn all the basics, and they can't really relate as much. I don't know, something like that.
Mm,
So I figured it'd be interesting to see a novice like myself speaking to somebody who's been there and done that somewhat.
as I said to you, I don't think you're that much of a novice, but um,
That yeah, that's one of those things. How do you know where you are? Like, it's I don't know. With everything that's out there and the all the groups that are popping up in the forums where you can post your work, I find it's becoming harder and harder to I don't really know, figure out where you are at. Like, because
mm,
I mean, I often find that when I'm working on something, I get completely lost in it, and then at the end of it, I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, does that make sense?
oh yeah, I think I still get that.
Yeah,
For me, I think the turning point is just, I mean, you produce and you're comparing it to people who are professionals usually, and it doesn't mean you're at their level, but it's like
yeah,
that's where you're striving towards. And at some point, if you're putting your work out there, you will get contacted by someone who wants
yeah.
to pay you for your work, and I feel like that's kind of when you start, or you could start applying to studios and showing them your portfolio, and when they take an interest in you, um,
That's only a
yeah,
milestone.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've sent like some messages out and things in the past, but I don't. I've never really looked at my own work and thought it was anything that anybody could use. Uh, I don't know. It seems strange, like how you spend so much time working on all the things that you need to work on to get to the place that you can't. Well, I feel like I've just got lost in a lot of it, and not really knowing what to do next, or if I'm doing the right things on a day-to-day basis. Really, I mean,
so
go on,
okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say that I've tried to work to those schedules, and I have in the past for a few weeks, but it always comes to the same point of seeing something online or something, and you you feel like you need to be doing that to keep up, if that makes sense. So you kind of drop what you had previous, or your plan that you had previously, and try and incorporate whatever's going on into your workload. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I mean, it's difficult because I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I think most people do this, and it's for me the helpful thing has been to stop looking at other people so much and
yeah,
instead just focus on my own thing, because again, so much is gained from mileage, from producing over and over again, and you will learn a lot that way. um, I was thinking about this earlier, and it's the idea of a comfort zone. And a lot of people will tell you, like, always step out of your comfort zone and make sure you're trying new things and all
yeah,
this. And I feel like actually better advice might be stay 80% in your comfort zone, or around, 80-90%. Like
Yeah,
it's okay to be primarily in your comfort zone and then taking steps outside, like little steps outside. So it's like, yeah, you're trying something new every single time, but you're focusing on pretty much your comfort zone. The way I always think of it is like you're juggling all these balls, and one of them is values, one of them is proportion, one of them is perspective, one of them is anatomy, one of them is color theory, all these things. And
yeah,
if it's your comfort zone, it's become muscle memory where you don't even think about it. Like you can do that
yeah,
in your sleep. And then if you have only like 20% outside of your comfort zone, you can really focus on adding those extra balls in. Like, okay, I can juggle these, it's all fine. Whereas if you're completely out of your comfort zone, it's almost like all the balls fall to the ground because you can't juggle all of them all at once, and then you've got to start from scratch, and each time you're like juggling one or two balls, when if you did stay in
yeah,
your
yeah.
comfort zone, you're like 10 balls in.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense actually. I mean, I that that saying like you should always stay out of your comfort zone is something that's always been at the forefront for me. Like one day I'll try sculpting and it'll be oil painting, and then it'll be trying a different meat like doing anatomy in marker, and then it'll be doing anatomy in pencil, and just constantly trying to change it up because of the fear of uh, not progressing and not really trying different things. Like I don't know.
Well, it's not a bad thing to do in the beginning,
Yeah,
because you're discovering who you are and what you like. But there is a certain point where it just becomes like you got to ask yourself, wait, why am I doing this again? What did I
yeah,
what was the point of me getting into art? What is my passion? What did I want to do?
yeah. That's something that's been creeping into my mind this past week. Really, just constantly asking myself, all right, well, if you're not happy with where you are, like try and do your best to remember why you go into this. Try and like think of the things that you actually like, and then take what you've been studying all the time, and then try and produce something, with it. But I always, like again, I think it is that the online thing is like a double-edged knife. Like you feel like you have to be there to have a presence, and you have to check on because of how fast things are moving. Like sort of feel like if you miss something, that's it. You're going to be behind. Do you know what I mean? In some way.
Yeah, but it's always moving as well. Like there's always something new, and there's new jobs and people
Yeah,
replacing old positions. But I get that.
yeah.
But what is it that you wanted to do? Like, why are you pursuing art?
This is what I mean. It's got to the point now where I'm not even. It's become a toss-up between just being able to draw well and correctly, and it never used to be that, which is strange. Like now I think some of my stuff loses a lot of me, and that's why I become unhappy with it, because I'm always trying to, the correctness is something that's always looming. Yeah,
Yeah, I always think of it like that's grammar. If you're trying to learn a language, that's like when you're just practicing and learning, grammar and
yeah,
verbs and nouns and pronouns and whatever. And the actual writing is what the creation is. It's like, well, yeah, you learn that, but you don't really focus on that. You
yeah,
just write, and hopefully you've absorbed it to the point that it's not something you think about. It's just something you use.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like, are these all things that you've experienced? I mean, just what I'm saying. Can you relate it in a way? Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that
I
that
the skill, it's almost like a trap. This skill trap, because at first I feel like skill is something we all covet because it's what separates the good artist from the not good artist. You look at art and it's like, wow, that's cool. And well, actually no. I think when you're really young, you just look at it because of the subject matter. Like, I like
Yeah.
that. That's cool. And I think that's really the purest.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's like that's when it's good. And
yeah,
then you get a bit older and you see people who are better than you. Maybe you see people who are worse than you, and it becomes this almost like a race or a totem pole thing of,
yeah,
okay, where am I on this? Where
yeah,
am I? Am I in fifth place? How do I get to fourth place? And that's when skill creeps in, and you look at people
yeah,
who can do things that you can't do. And for me, it used to be like photorealism, like any kind of realism. If I saw someone who could paint realistically, I'd be like, "Whoa, how'd they do that, though?"
yeah.
Like,
That's where I'm at the minute, really.
yeah, and then it's this. Then you find out, hopefully, you find out that there is a method to get that. And
Yeah,
it's like, okay, so I just have to study this, I have to study values, and I have to do these drawings, and I have to do this and that. And then you're down the path of the skill, because you will gain the skill, but it takes a while, and then at the end, it's like, you get to the confused, what am I doing again? Why am I
yeah,
doing this?
yeah,
And there's this other thing that's even worse, which is you'll get really good at studying, you'll get really good at using reference, and then when as long as you're using reference, as long as you're doing a study, you know the formula, you know how to get a good result. But then when it's from imagination and it's on the spot, it's hard. It becomes this
yeah,
feeling of
definitely.
like, my pictures suck when I don't use reference. My
Yeah,
pictures, and that's
that's right
really
where I
depressing.
am.
Yeah, it
Um,
gets really depressing to be
yeah,
in that spot, and the way out of it, I think, is to remember what did you like when you were really young before you started thinking about skill.
yeah. I mean, I always feel like you, it's like I know a few people who are really interested in art, and I'm not gonna mention any names or anything, and they they do it all the time, but they're sort of in that phase where the skill level's not really entered their mind yet, and they're just happy with the work that they're producing. It's not like correct by any means, or what you'd call correct, like the anatomy or the lighting or the color or whatever. But you can they're not taking that in uh, on board. Like they're just drawing for the sake of drawing and because they enjoy it. And it sort of gets well, it feels like it sort of gets to that place where like I'm sort of envious of that because it's just becoming harder and harder. I mean, this crocodile thing that I did, it was throughout the day I'd been just doing anatomy and trying to do portraits, and then 20 minutes it was pretty much just vomit on a page, and I was like, I'm just gonna do something with this, and then this is how it came out. And it's just like I never expected that to be part of my process to create something that I like. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what you mean by part of your process too.
Well, I mean, because you do these things to then be able to create what you want. But this piece, this character, was just out of frustration of not doing the anatomy and the portrait right.
Right,
Uh,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So, and I never expected it to be that way. Like, it was strange. I mean, I'm happy with it, but it annoys me that it wasn't um it wasn't that I'd put any real thought into it, which then kind of made me feel like, well, I didn't do any real planning for it. Like I kind of just went with it, and that sort of feels like it's not as don't have as much value to it.
Really? How come?
I don't. Again, it's just the idea that because I didn't put the studies into looking at crocodiles and like going that extra mile to really make it something. It was just straight off the bat, like just did it, and it kind of feels like counterintuitive to everything that I'm trying to teach myself, like the process I'm trying to teach myself, where you think of something you want to do, you do a rough thumbnail or whatever it is, you go collect reference, you might do some studies from the reference to get a better idea, and then you go into the piece like prepared, you know what you want to do, and you execute it. Whereas this was literally just out of frustration of not doing anything right, and it's like I like it, but I don't like it because of the opposite side of that. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, so it's like you're putting this expectation that there is a fixed process. Because I don't
Yeah,
know, I don't see a problem with just doing stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I mean, you like it, so that's important.
yeah,
Um, and you could always do this. And okay, so this is your rough or whatever, and then you look at the reference after the fact. In fact, I'm starting to think that that's maybe a better way of going about things. In some ways, just because when you're free, you get things down really quickly, and it's more pure. And then when you're looking at a bunch of reference, you can start to get really influenced by the reference. And I found when I would do
yeah,
that, I'd find like because I did similar things to this as well at one point, and maybe I would be creating like a gorilla monster guy, and I would find a picture of a gorilla, but it was in a certain pose, and it wasn't the pose I intended to do, but it's close enough. So it's like I'd start copying that pose and then adding whatever things
yeah.
on top, and it just felt like this is I don't own this. I'm not in control of this. I'm dependent on this reference. If
That's exactly how I feel about like 80% of my work. like where you sort of you're looking at the reference and then you're trying to incorporate it in the right way, but you just realize that you're just doing a blanket study of it pretty much, and it's no longer the idea you had to do the piece. It's just become a study that means nothing really.
yeah,
Uh, I
so
think it
mhm.
makes you try and take things from the reference and put it into the image, but it just becomes stiff.
Yeah,
Like, but then I guess that's because you don't know how things sit on muscle and things like that. You know?
a little bit, yeah, but there is something to be said about maybe we do know a lot of stuff, but it's because Cynic's got me into thinking about this, where he doesn't really use reference and he just keeps. I mean, he uses reference sometimes, but a lot of what he does is from imagination. He just keeps correcting it until it looks right,
Yeah,
and you can do a lot with that, where you just keep looking at your image and it's like, does it look right yet? If it doesn't, then you just keep painting it. It's like, why doesn't it look right? What if I
yeah,
do this? What if I do that? And in the beginning, it's really slow and painful, but after a while, you just keep producing and producing and producing, and I would suggest maybe even continuing to. Okay, so this is one design that just came when you were frustrated or whatever, but it seems to me like you were just going with whatever was in your subconscious, or like not.
yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Like that, the way of looking at it. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it really. Because I think you always you especially for me, like when I first started doing all this, the idea that I could do a full image from my imagination and I didn't need anything, like that was the part that I liked about it. That was what I wanted to be like. You know, I wanted to just create these amazing images. But I think just somewhere along the line, it switches and you don't realize, you really don't. Yeah.
And I think maybe with the reference, it might have even helped if you just like stare, like, okay, so you do this and you do it to the best of your ability, maybe, or even before you do this, but then you just look at a picture of a crocodile, or maybe a few, or but you just study it and like, how do they work without drawing, without putting it beside your image or anything. Just look at it and analyze it and like, what am I noticing about it, and really taking it in, and then close the reference and then do it from imagination, not copying the reference, but just having that sort of saturated in your mind. So it's like when you get to the arm, it's a case of like, what does the arm look like again? Oh yeah, it kind of looked like that. And if you're having trouble remembering, that means you're not spending enough time really
Breaking it
paying
down.
attention, yeah, and focusing on it. Um, but like, okay, so when I look at your work, the heads look really good. And so it's this case of, let's just say you kept doing more and more. I think you'd be fine. I mean, it looks like you're going somewhere with this, and if you,
Yeah. Sorry. That's the thing. Like it feels like I could go somewhere with it, and I want it when I will do it. But because I never did any of the other steps, you know, it just I don't know. It's so strange. It just sort of feels like it shouldn't be the the thing you're spending this amount of time on. Like the thing you spend the most amount of time on should be the thing that you've planned. If that makes sense.
I think the word "should" is very dangerous because it's like, why should why, you know, why should this be? Well,
Yeah.
because someone else is doing that. Okay, that's what someone else is doing. Why should that apply to me? I mean, in general, this the word "should." I'd rather not use it, just because it's like it's not a good reason to do something. It's because I
Too
should.
open-ended.
It's,
Yeah.
it's a much better reason because it's like because I like it, or this was my idea. But I would forgive yourself over this thing and try it. Like do a bunch of these for, I don't know, 10 days, a month, whatever. See how it goes. If you're just doing, you know, tons and just you keep cranking them out, you're gonna improve.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, it'll be a test of like, well, what is this like? Will I learn anything?
Yeah.
Um, but I'm pretty sure you'll improve.
I mean, do you think you can? Sounds like a stupid question, but do you think you can learn more from doing that than you can from doing the studies? Because I mean, I realise now that I spend far too much time just studying like all day long. I mean, I'm paying for like 12 hours a day easy, and a good half of that is spent just doing like or trying to do studies, do something that I think's going to be the most beneficial thing for me, the thing that I'm going to learn the most from, and then just finding myself frustrated with it. So do you think it'd be better then to nip that in the bud and just try, well, this approach that you mentioned?
I it's hard to say because I know people who've done it both ways.
Yeah,
I know people who have done they're really tight with their studies, and
yeah,
it really pays off. But even then, I think their work's a bit stiff. The ones that are really heavy onto studies, but at the same time, I don't see the point of losing your passion. It's like you're gonna make worse art. It's
yeah,
art isn't just this dead thing that it's like, wow, this looks like what it looks like. So then why aren't people just taking photographs of animals at the zoo and pasting them and doing like photo manipulations? It's there's got to be more to it than that, and I feel like if you're passionate, it shows. And that's the most important thing is you have an idea and you're passionate about something, and then you can build the skill on top, because in the beginning the skill seems like this huge important thing, but at the end of the day, what's going to happen if you have the skill but you have nothing else? And
yeah,
I feel like, yeah, if you're just creating, and you're gaining mileage and you're experimenting, you will learn a lot, probably a lot more, because at least you're trying new things, and you're, again, you are breaking out of your comfort zone, even though it's a little bit, but you're also avoiding this thing of when you do studies, it's actually, at first it's difficult and you're learning a lot, especially with value studies, but then there's this point where you actually just get comfortable and it's not that hard, and like, hey, if I spend 15 hours on this painting, I can make it pretty close to photorealistic.
yeah,
And what's the point then? What are you learning? Are you learning? It's almost like you're just polishing. You're polishing your sword instead of using your sword. And it's like, wow, this sword is super sharp. It's like, uh huh. And what are you gonna do with it? I'm gonna make it sharper. It's like, dude, it's sharp. This is not what a sword is for.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So
I mean,
is this
oh,
character stuff what you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've always liked. Coming up with characters and
Or creatures, I should say.
yeah, creatures and characters and whatnot. I mean, I've always been influenced by like recently I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls, and I just love the creatures and all the characters and things like that are in that, and like all the Final Fantasy games, stuff like that. But every time I look at them, or I think like, oh, one day you could be, up there. Then it's like, well, if you want to be up there, you need to, grind away.
I
And I
mean,
think,
yeah, you need to work, but it doesn't have to be painful.
yeah,
That's the thing. People get confused with that, like the whole no pain, no gain type thing. Not really. You get more done if you're having fun, and
yeah,
it's the amount of work that's important. It's not that you're bashing your head against a wall. Um, it's more that you're just creating, and what's going to make you create more? If it's really painful and every painting is just like a struggle, or if this is actually fun and this is what you're passionate about, and you do this because you love to do this.
shedding a lot of light on things. Yeah, I mean, would you say that you'd gain more then, in a sense, from trying to rediscover the thing that you like and trying to do the thing that you like, opposed to, well, it kind of answers itself.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the last year pretty much doing that, where it's like, what am I, what am I doing? I don't know if you saw my, what was it, the art progress from the last year, but I was all over the place. I was just doing like landscape study and then some characters and this and that, and now I just do characters because it's what I like, and it seems really stupid, or really easy, and like I was stupid for not noticing it. Like, oh yeah, what am I? Why was I doing other stuff? But part of it is what you're talking about. You'll look at other people's work and they'll do a nice landscape, and it's like, I should be able to do that. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
that's good to do, and I think why, like why is that necessary? And also, there's a big difference between admiring something and having to do that yourself, or even what you like and what you admire, because there's works that I really admire because they're skillfully done, but I actually don't like them. And the difference is that if when I was really young and I was a kid and I didn't have any notion of skill, would I have liked that? And that's where I can see like, yeah, actually probably not. And then when you
yeah.
get into the skill mode, it's more like, oh, but look how he did the rendering. Oh, look at those scales. Wow.
Yeah, so I guess you should be like asking yourself why a lot more, opposed to just you need to do this and you need to do it now, and it's not as good as said person. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because you know what's scary is that you will get good. Whatever you do, you get good at. So if you do these studies and you work really hard, you will get good at doing studies and working really hard, and you will probably get a job, and you will be like, "Whoa, I got a job. This is great. What a great feeling. This is all paying off." And then you'll work and work and work and start to hate it and wonder like, this doesn't even feel good, and you will hate going to work, or you will hate drawing, and then you'll realize, oh, I don't even like any of this. This
yeah,
isn't even what I wanted to do. And that's a terrible realization to come to later in life, where
yeah.
it's
You
like,
kind of dug yourself in.
yeah, because now you have work and people depend on you, and it's harder to just say, well, I'm going to quit this job because I'm going to go do my own thing. It's like, but okay, you have a reputation for doing this, and
Yeah,
it's just, yeah, I think if you start doing following your passion in the beginning and just sticking to that, like stubbornly, people might say there's no future here, but you just do it and things come out of that, because passion is noticeable. It really is. You can look at someone's work and tell like they had fun doing this, or this was labor to them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, is it something that you've experienced yourself, something like that, or have you always just sort of known?
No, I mean, I'm telling you, like, it's only this last year that I have. It's even probably less than a year that I had this mentality. Before this, I was just like you, um,
No.
getting completely distracted, and I was more in the stage of getting jobs I did not like, and
Yeah,
having a portfolio. Um, One of the things was I would look at my website or my DeviantArt portfolio, and I'm looking at the gallery, and I realized, like, I don't like any of this. Like, none of this work feels like me. There's maybe one or two pieces that felt like me,
yeah,
um, but this is what I was showing, and this is where I was heading. It was a case of like, well, you're gonna be more of this because this is what you're doing. And I would get jobs where people would send me a bunch of references of other people's work and say, make it look like this. And I'd be like, okay, I can do that. And then, and it was draining. It's sort of soul crushing for me.
yeah,
Because I'm not doing what I enjoy. But I somehow had convinced myself that what I enjoy is not, that doesn't matter, or that's not valid, that's not important. I should be again, I was doing what you were doing with the should word. I
yeah,
should be doing this. I should be doing studies on this other stuff. I should do backgrounds. Especially when you get people sort of giving you advice,
yeah,
and they're like, you really need to work on this or need to work on that. And to a point it's good, but I think what you have to always do is when you get the advice, really check with yourself, what is it you wanted to do? What is like that should be your foundation. That's where you always come home to. It's like, what do I want to do? What do I like doing? What is my goal? And then take in their criticism through that filter of like, okay, maybe they're saying you need to practice your landscapes, but if your thing is like, I only want to do creature design, I mean, maybe it's good for their backgrounds, but okay, so let's say they're saying do architecture and do buildings and stuff. It's
yeah,
like, does this make sense for me? Because if it doesn't, I don't think you should be investing your time in that.
yeah.
But this is my opinion, and I could be wrong. So
No, I mean, what you're saying, it rings true and it makes a lot of sense. But then you just have the 101 other voices in your ear, firing away, saying, "Well, it's things are only you've got to be able to do everything, I guess, or you've got to be able to do it all to a certain level, and then maybe like the thing that you enjoy the most be the good at." But I feel like you well, I don't know, because everything that I'm saying, obviously, I've never worked, like never earned any money from my work, so I think it sort of changes how you see things, and until you start getting those jobs, I don't think you really know what it is that you need to be doing to get those jobs.
yeah, and I think there's also a part of us that I think we all know a little more than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah,
Um, if I really thought about it, and I asked myself, what do you really think you should be doing? Almost like you're giving advice to someone else who just happens to have your portfolio. Um, Sometimes it's easier to figure out like, dude, you're doing the wrong thing. Why are you doing this? You don't even like doing this. And then it's a case of trusting that voice. Like, okay, you got a good point.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you like, how was it for you then? If you was in that place where you just wasn't happy with any of the work that you was producing, and but you just suddenly was like, I'm not having this anymore. I'm gonna
yeah,
do things that I
pretty
want to do.
much, pretty much.
Put your foot down.
Yep, I quit all my other jobs and just started doing my own thing, and I didn't get people asking me to do work at first, because
Yeah,
it was just this new style, and I'm playing around, and I mean, I still had other sources of income coming in, so it's
Yeah,
not like I had nothing. But it was a case of the jobs I used to, the freelance jobs I used to take, I just no. And then now I'm finally at the point where people are contacting me again, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to do this, but in your style," and it's
nice.
such a better feeling. Like it's like, oh my god, I'm so I'm so happy now because it's not soul crushing anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, this is okay. This is good. This is good.
Do you feel like you learn a lot though from doing the other, like from experiencing the darker side of it, and you know doing the work that you wasn't happy with, to then coming out of the other side, and
Uh,
right now.
yeah, I wonder about this. I wonder, like, what if I discovered this like 5 years ago? Maybe I
Yeah,
would just be much better at my style by now, and it would be I would be further ahead. But at the same time, it's not like any of this is useless. Like, it's not harmful that you learn values better or you learn to draw this or that. It's not a bad thing, but honestly, I do feel a little bit like if I had done my own thing earlier, it would have been I wouldn't be as versatile. I wouldn't be able to take on as many jobs, but I would
yeah,
be much more specific and good at what I do. And I feel like if you want to be the guy who is safe and can do any job, then actually doing a bunch of different stuff is good. But if you're at the point where you're unhappy, that means you're not that type of generalist. That means you have your own voice and it's not being uh, represented. And so then you need to think about it in terms of like, wait, it's if I get good at everything, I'm just gonna get jobs I don't want. If I'm really really good at this one thing, no one's gonna hire me for anything except this one thing.
yeah. So you better like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you'll be much better at it because again, it's less. You're playing with less variables. Like if all you did was a beach landscape, like that's all you ever painted is beaches and the tide. Like imagine how good you would get at the beach and the tide. Like everyone who wants to paint a beach is like go to that guy. He's the best at beaches. And
yeah.
then you'll you'll yeah.
I mean, painting beaches sounds quite nice.
And I mean, you can make a sandcastle and it'll be a son of a beach. Uh,
Nice.
not really, but let's move on.
Yeah. um, so yeah, I mean, if you was so you went through all that, you did you did all the work that you weren't happy with, and now you're happy with doing your character stuff in this style.
Yep.
I mean, do you feel like you'll always be that way, or I don't know. I always get the impression, I always get the feeling that in the future I'm going to regret spending so much time on something that and wishing I had done something else because my tastes will change and like I don't know. I often just think that I overthink things far too much.
I think your or my taste did change a lot, but only in like high school and after it changed a lot. But
Yeah,
when I was, I think grade 7, like 12 years old, 13, 11, it didn't change that much from then. So, and I'm not saying everyone should just do what they were doing when they were little kids, because that's not
yeah,
for everybody. But I mean, there is this stable part of us, I think, and it tends to be that part where you get nostalgic about things where even if they're crappy you still like it because it's like but that's cool to me that I remember being a kid and watching this show and
yeah.
it's cool to me. So I think when you have that kind of feeling, then it drives your work into a more stable place because usually those things don't just come and go. That childhood nostalgic feeling.
Yeah, it kind of always stays with you, doesn't it? I mean, I guess it's when you start discovering what you really want to do. Like you start being able to see those options.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's not like if you did get very good at this and you decided to do something else, it's not like it's non-transferable. Because
yeah,
the thing is, if you do what you like, you will be passionate. If you're passionate, you will produce more. If you produce more, you will get more skill. And then if you change your mind about what like I'm passionate about something else, it's like cool, but I have all this skill. So now I'm going to follow my new passion with all the skill that I've gained.
yeah.
Whereas if you're not passionate and you don't work as much, then you're going to have less skill. And then if you change your mind, it's like, well, yeah, but you have less skill. And you're going to. So I think just do what you like.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I was just thinking exactly like you hear it all the time. Like you hear people saying, "Oh, follow your passion." But I don't. I think it's hard to comprehend really just what that means. Like because it can mean anything and nothing. Like I think along the way, you like how I feel anyway that you really do just become so like disconnected from why you got into this and.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I'm only in the really, really early stages of what, my career. So I think that's what worries me the most is that, like, I feel like that now. So in the future, it feels like it could be 10 times worse.
Mm.
But I mean, I think it is that you really always do have to remember why you got into it and what it means to be passionate about the thing you are working on then and there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I used to hear it a lot where people would say, follow your passion, and I would think, but what if I don't have a passion? Like,
Yeah,
what if it's just not that strong? I don't feel like I have something that strong. And I was just looking in the wrong places. Because I was being me, being affected by everyone else, and then
yeah,
thinking I don't have a passion. But I think I was a bit embarrassed to really admit to myself what I liked. Like, I like anime or manga type characters. I like comic books. I like just drawing the characters. I don't really like drawing backgrounds. And it felt like I was almost being too picky and
yeah,
selfish and like, dude, you can't just do this. You have to be doing. Look at what everyone else is doing. They're doing all these like backgrounds and really nice renders and stuff. And this is where the money is, and this is where the jobs are. So it became a case of second guessing myself and almost talking myself out of my passion.
yeah, definitely.
So I think people are lucky in a way if they are single minded and focused and they just have their passion. It's like, this is all I do. Um, and
Yeah,
then they say things like, oh, how do I do it? I just follow my passion and it takes hard work and dedication. It's like, it's easy to work hard when you're passionate. It's hard to work hard when you're not passionate. And I think most people are actually in the not as passionate stage, or at least they don't, maybe they've forgotten why they're passionate, or they just tell themselves it's not acceptable. Like, no,
yeah.
that's not okay.
I mean, I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night. Like, do you feel like, well, it's more the idea that you sort of have to, in the beginning, you have a taste of the passion. Like, you're all enthused about it, and you know exactly what it is you want to do, and you want to get doing it, and you want to get doing it right away, and no one's going to stop you. But then I sort of feel like as you working through and the grind and you're doing day to day basis, sat down work, sat down work. I feel like you sort of it either goes one of both ways. You sort of really some day to day it could change. Like one day you could just hate what you're doing, you question everything, and then the next day you do the smallest scribble that means nothing, and it's just you it really changes how you. I don't really know how you what it is you want to do. Like
Yeah.
it feels like the minute you just shut yourself off, you can really get to what it is you want to do. But 90% of the time, you're surrounding yourself with all these things that you need to learn that you
Yeah.
just gets pushed to the back and forgotten about for a week, and then it crops up again for a day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think part of mileage comes from just having enough of those experiences that you notice a pattern where it's
yeah,
like, you know what, I find these are really easy to do. And this other thing is there's this tendency to avoid what is for certain people. I think maybe for someone like you, certainly for someone like me, it was this thing of if something is easy, I don't respect it. It's like, well, that can't be good because that was easy for me,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
almost get addicted to the, not addicted, but you start to really just think like, well, this was really hard, so that's good.
yeah,
I did work today because it was so hard. And then if you do something and it's like this was easy and fun, it's like, well, but then that's not serious.
yeah.
Um,
Nah, yeah, that rings true. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, like it's the reason why, like, you hear like people talking, saying like everybody experiences the, it's the same for everybody. Like everybody has these feelings and these doubts, and dropping in and out of, I want to do it, I don't want to do it. But it just never really seems to sink in. Like it's strange how you can hear something and I think it's until you've experienced it for yourself. I think words do fall on deaf ears a lot of the time.
hmm.
I
Yeah.
think it's hard, like really hard to allow yourself to really take in what somebody's saying without having that voice in your head say, "Well, you're the one that's doing the work, so you know better."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is there any other questions you had?
Uh, no, no. I mean, no.
It was cool to get your take on things because it's going
Yeah,
back and remembering like, oh yeah,
I
this
mean,
is,
like,
it's not even that far back.
I mean, the thing is, like, the things that I'm saying. I mean, the chances are in a few weeks' time or a few months' time that I'll feel differently about it, and I know that. But it it always feels like it's the right at the front of your mind all the time. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a good idea just to have a chat with somebody who's further on and yeah,
Well,
see like yeah.
I really appreciate it. It was good.
Oh no, man, I appreciate it. This is it's been really good actually. It's like really insightful because it just like hearing that you hearing that you've been through these things and that you've come out the other side of it and you've had these realizations and seen the patterns like that alone like has sparked a lot of for me sort of like noticing the patterns is something definitely I'd never pinned anything to it like until this very conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, I really think people know more than they give themselves credit for, though. If you just believe in yourself, it's like you know what to do. I think most people know what to do.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's true.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, it was
Yeah,
good talking with you, and
yeah,
yeah, thanks.
yeah, no worries.